This episode was brought to you by Pentester Academy, the leader in online cybersecurity education. Join over 10,000 professionals from 90 countries to learn security online. Also brought to you by Hacker Arsenal, artillery for cyber warriors. Visit us on hackerarsenal.com to check out our latest attack defense gadgets. I'm Marley Oxenholm from Pentester Academy TV, and welcome to our show, Access Point, where we spotlight cybersecurity companies and give an inside look at the people and technology behind the latest advancements in the industry. Today, I'll be speaking with the company Remediant. I'm sitting down right now with Timothy Keeler, who is founder and CEO of the company. Thank you for joining me today.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I got a lot of great questions here from our tech team, so you ready to get started?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's do this. So first question, can you talk in detail about the architecture of your platform, how it works exactly? And from what I could gather from your website, it looks like you were trying to apply the principle of at least privilege on the whole network.
Yeah, that's right. When we've really broken down to see what administrators are doing on a daily basis, we realize that they have 24/7 access to literally thousands of systems, if not most of the most critical systems on the network. But in their day-to-day job, they're only logging into a small handful of servers at any given moment. So what we do is this concept of just-in-time administration, where we follow the principles of least privilege and make it really, really simple for an administrator to gain access to server A or server B. So they go through our web portal with two-factor authentication, and then we can dynamically grant access as they need to log on those servers. And so we time-bound that access. So if they need to log on for 4 hours, they'll get access using their own identity for 4 hours. And at the end of the 4 hours, we'll just automatically pull that away. So all the critical infrastructure sits in this very the zero privilege model, where nobody can log into systems unless they go through that two-factor verification check.
Okay, got it. And now I know your website mentions that you can block unauthorized access even when administrators' usernames and passwords are compromised. How exactly does that work?
Yeah, so the concept is when we deploy in the network, we run completely agentless, and we connect out to all these systems. We learn about the administrative rights, so we inventory that information. And then when we enable protect mode for specific systems, we take away all of those administrator rights. So essentially we're at the operating system level, we are removing all of the accounts out of the local admin group, so nobody by default can log in directly to that system. And that's what allows a system to be truly protected, because we're following that zero privilege model. And then we can grant dynamically the accounts that need to log into that system to perform any action, whether it's service patching or troubleshooting or whatever the administrator needs to do their job.
Okay, got it. And now, how does SecureONE manage to scan over 100,000 hosts in under 5 minutes? Are you collecting just port and service data, or other metrics as well?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work around horizontal scaling, and our proprietary technology allows us to make thousands of connections simultaneously out to all the different systems on the network. So we do this without any agents, and that allows us to connect in, learn about the administrative accounts. We don't need any elevated privilege in order to do this. We just need a regular domain service account. And what we've done is we've broken that down into about 5 network packets. So we can connect to a system, gather all the administrative rights for that system in under 100 milliseconds on a local network. So when we take that speed, along with lots and lots of connections out to systems, we're able to inventory vast amounts of systems very, very quickly. And that makes us just deploy so much faster rather than to have to connect out to systems, install agents, and go through that big hassle. Okay.
And now can you walk us through how SecureONE could be used to detect an advanced persistent threat exactly?
Yeah. I get asked this all the time. In fact, CISOs always ask me, well, how do I know the difference between an administrator logging into a system versus an attacker using those same credentials? And it's been extremely hard. And what we've been able to do is to break that out. So when we follow that zero privilege and we add in that second factor through our web interface, we can now distinguish between an administrator who is performing legitimate activities because we're collecting and inventorying all that, versus an attacker that's just trying to log in with credentials directly on the endpoint. So we take those events, and now we can distinguish the difference between a successful authentication versus an authorization denied. And that's a real key distinguishing factor, because when you see someone using a valid credentials, but they're getting authorization denied when they're trying to log onto a server, all those logs are centrally collected, and we can immediately report on an event to say, hey, something's going on, we should do a further investigation.
Nice. Okay. And speaking of the threats, I know your website also mentions that you detect insider threats. How exactly is that done, and are you maintaining audit trails for every privileged action that there is?
Yeah, so this is a big problem for most of our customers, and how they can accurately, detect and respond to insider threats. Most of the customers are in the compliance market, so having a full audit trail and capability of what the user is elevating their administrative access to is really important.
Okay.
So keeping track of all the different audit events, along with what systems they're trying to elevate their privilege to, we can immediately report out on that to the SOC. So if someone is trying to elevate their privilege to a system they normally don't access, or they shouldn't attempt to have access to, we'll be able to report out on that and help the investigation process along.
Nice. All right. And now I'm just curious, what sort of insider threats have you helped detect for a customer?
Yeah, so we get that a lot, right? And being able to report out on that information is really key. So a lot of cases, people come to us with, the Snowden type question of, hey, how do we know when someone is trying to log in and do this activity? We're not keeping track of the actual events on a specific system, but if you see someone who normally doesn't log into a file server automatically, elevating their privilege to get access to that server, we'll report out on that information.
That's suspicious, yeah.
Right. And so being able to keep a full audit trail using people's own identities, you don't have to fall back and figure out where a shared account is being used. We can now trace that back and more accurately detect on what that user activity is.
Okay, nice, got it. And lastly, are there any, last things that you'd like to highlight about the company or product as a whole? Yeah,
so designing SecureONE, we really want to follow 3 core principles. The first is that it has to be very easy to use. I really believe that an administrator can't struggle with the technology in order to do their day-to-day function. So we design it just with a really beautiful, easy-to-use, intuitive web interface. The second principle is that every action should be done using the user's own identity. So we don't need to follow the methodology of using shared accounts or bifurcated accounts anymore. We can now trace everything down to a specific individual, and they should always use that own identity when they're working in a privileged environment. And the third is around continuous monitoring. So we know administrative rights change all the time in environments, and being able to accurately track that is really important to make sure that we are protecting counts. So we're following not just the whole administrative change, but we can detect those changes and then also immediately lock those systems back down in that zero privilege state.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much for sitting down and speaking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all the time that we have for today, so be sure to tune in next time for another episode of Access Point. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook so you don't miss out on any of the latest cybersecurity news. This episode is brought to you by Pentester Academy, the leader in online cybersecurity education. Join over 10,000 professionals from 90 countries to learn security online. Also brought to you by Hacker Arsenal, artillery for cyber warriors. Visit us on hackerarsenal.com to check out our latest attack defense gadgets. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.